All right, welcome folks to this afternoon's webinar, From Idea to Commercialization, the Role of Innovation Advisors, hosted by Bioenterprise Canada and eCampusOntario. My name is Michael Krobach, Microcredentials Program Lead at eCampusOntario, and I have the pleasure of facilitating today's session alongside our special guests. Next slide, please. To start us in a good way, we'd like to acknowledge that our work takes place on the traditional territory of many nations. eCampusOntario is located in downtown Toronto on the traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. As we gather today to discuss innovation in agri-food and agri-tech, we recognize that Indigenous peoples have been growing, harvesting, and stewarding these lands and waters for thousands of years. Their knowledge systems, agricultural practices, and relationship to the land continue to shape sustainable food futures. We are grateful to be able to do this work here and commit to advancing collaboration and respect in the agri-food sector. Next slide, please. A few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and will be shared on our channels for future reference. Please use the CC or closed captioning button to enable closed captioning on demand on your device. For any Q&A you might have, we invite you to ask your questions using the dedicated Q&A box. We'll turn to your questions at the end of the fireside chat. In the unlikely event that we experience an unplanned disruption during our webinar, we may have to conclude the session immediately. If this happens, we'll follow up with participants via email. Next slide, please. We invite you to share where you're joining us from in the chat. In today's webinar, we'll be exploring innovation in agri-food and agri-tech sector, particularly why mentorship matters, and how collaboration with academic institutions can help businesses reach the next stage of their growth. Through a fireside chat conversation between eCampusOntario and Bioenterprise Canada, we'll also share real-world examples of how companies have progressed from idea to market readiness with the support of the GOAH Ontario Accelerator Hub, or GOAH. We'll also outline practical pathways for entrepreneurs and SMEs to access supports and resources in the ecosystem to help spark and scale new ideas. At the end of today's session, we'll turn to questions from the audience. Next slide. So for those who are not familiar with eCampusOntario, we're a not-for-profit organization funded by the Ontario Ministry of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence, and Security. We support innovation, collaboration, and digital by design education in Ontario's publicly assisted colleges, universities, and Indigenous institutes. We provide the sector with platforms, programs, and services to advance digital participation in post-secondary education, linking Ontario's post-secondary institutions and learners to the future of education and the future of work. Next slide, please. We work with valued channel partners in the innovation ecosystem across sectors. Bioenterprise Canada is Canada's food and agri-tech engine, the country's leading agri-tech alliance, uniting innovators, partners, and investors to drive groundbreaking agri-food innovations. By providing market intelligence, mentorship, and funding, Bioenterprise Canada bridges cutting-edge research to commercial success, helping agri-food innovations scale nationally and globally. Through its team of agri-food industry experts and innovation advisors, the engine is dedicated to helping small and medium-sized agri-food businesses connect, innovate, and grow. Next slide, please. I'm now pleased to introduce today's speakers for this session. Don Eldridge is Program Manager, Collaborative Sector Engagement at eCampusOntario. He leads a team that works to bridge higher education with business to catalyze innovation, commercialization, workforce development, and economic growth. Carla Burko is Director of Canada's Agri-Food and Agri-Tech Engine at Bioenterprise Canada. As Director, Carla is responsible for all facets of the engine, including its development, implementation, and management, strategic partnerships, and membership growth and engagement. She is committed to working with communities, government, industries, and all related partners as a catalyst for establishing long-term relationships, connectivity, and collaboration in food, agri-tech, and related sectors in Canada. I'll now turn things over to Don and Carla.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And Carla, it's great to see you again. And thank you for joining us for this conversation today.
Likewise, Don. Thank you.
So I think we're going to start with kind of setting the stage, getting a little bit of context around the work of Bioenterprise. So I know that Bioenterprise brands itself as Canada's food and agri-tech engine. But I think sometimes we hear terms like bioeconomy, agri-food, agri-tech, and we're not really necessarily sure what all those terms tend to mean. So for those of us who might not be familiar with the food and agri-tech sector, and I'm going to count myself among those folks, could you explain what kinds of businesses might fall into the Bioenterprise client base?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's a very good one. And believe me, I was there once as well. And we are always learning every day. So I would say that the bioeconomy is basically biological resources, renewable. So any economic activity that comes from that could be from plants, animals, or microbes. The agri-food is basically the value chain. So anything from farm production to food processing and the distribution of those as well. And agri-tech or ag-tech, depending who is using the term, we really focus on the technology and the innovation that's applied to the agriculture and the food systems we'll be talking about here today. So we basically work with all those, and they would be our clients or members, as we call them. And they could be from scientists that are commercializing some new biological discoveries they made and they want to make it in a business. We can work with startups. They're building tools for agriculture. We can work with food companies that are making probably sustainable products or healthier products. And I think also the business turning agricultural waste, that's when the sustainability circular economy comes into it, and they turn that waste into some high value materials. So I guess, any innovation that comes from soil to shelf, if I may, and anything that is beyond that. So I would say that anything that turns into circular sustainability, that maybe we'll talk a little bit about it. And just some examples so people can perhaps place them. So when we talk about precision agriculture, many people know about drones, people know about soil health, plant genetics, novel food ingredients, and then, the bioplastics. I think carbon sequestration is something that people hear about. So I'd say that all those clients, are members of Bioenterprise.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That's helpful, and it sounds like a very broad range of potential stakeholders and businesses that you're working with. So,
Absolutely.
so for those of us who aren't necessarily familiar with what your role is within the ecosystem, can you tell us what exactly an innovation advisor does, and how do you support all these different kinds of businesses that you've just mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question. I think it's an important clarification. The sector, as we just described, in my other answer, it can be complex. Doesn't have to be, but it could be, right? Agri-food, agri-tech, and all those things. So I would say that the innovation advisor, if I would to sum it up, I would call it a commercialization partner. And I say that because the role that the innovation advisor plays is quite important. So let's start with the role of the ecosystem. So the ecosystem, where we sit at Bioenterprise is we are working with innovators that are developing new technologies. We are working with farmers, processors, distributors that are adopting that innovation, and then funders, investors, government programs, domestic partners, that bring them to market and so on. So I think the role of that commercialization partner, that's the innovation advisor, is really reducing commercialization risk. So if we are accelerating a company to get to commercialization, revenue, or scale, all those things will de-risk that innovation. And that's what, adopters and funders and investors are looking for. So I would say that innovation advisor is an expert. So someone who works directly with the venture or the innovator we are working with. And that innovation advisor is going to help them navigate that growth, the acceleration of their innovation and their businesses. So they will be your strategic business advisor. They're going to be your sector expert. They are an ecosystem connector as well, because our innovation advisors, they have their own networks as well. So as you work alongside with them, and usually it is a 12-month assignment, right? We do 12-month memberships. So as you get to know the innovator, you also learn their needs, and maybe they have someone in their own network, and they make that connection. And I think it's also important to say that they are an accountability partner, and they are not a general consultant. They really understand the unique realities of agriculture, and I read like the regulatory hurdles that we have, the capital intensity, the risk that they have to address. So I'd say that they are a hands-on commercialization strategist, and they really know the agri-food ecosystem in Canada, and they really, are strong advocates, and they can help that scalability and the revenue generation, goal, I guess, of every innovator. I think that's how I would probably say that the innovation advisor, help them move faster. I think that's another point, that I should perhaps give a little bit more detail. And it is about, when we talk about innovators, everybody's strapped for money and, and some hurdles in regulatory, and things like that. So if you think of an expert like this innovation advisor, they help you avoid those costly missteps, because if you are alone, right, you really don't know. So if you have someone there to help you avoid those, they will improve your capital efficiency probably. They can, help you become more investable. And I think the big success is to increase, the long-term profitability of the business, and really set them for success, I guess.
It sounds like a very big job, and it sounds like your investment advisor can be your best friend as a business going through this system. Give you reality checks, connect you with the resources, and make sure that you're getting what you need when you need it to be as successful as possible in your ventures. That's wonderful. So I want to kind of talk a little bit about why the agri-food innovation matters in Canada. So I guess really, why should the average Canadian, a person, we all eat, that's for sure, but why should the average Canadian care about agri-food innovation? How is it intersecting with the average everyday life of a Canadian?
Well, you kind of answered a big part of the question there. We all eat. So doesn't matter if we are talking about Canada and why Canadians should be, interested in that. Everybody eats. So that's something that will never change. We are born, we need to eat, survive, and we do that, for as long as we live. So I would say something that people would probably understand very well after, we all need to eat is inflation. So food inflation, supply chain disruption, climate change, it can be a little of another interesting topic, but all those things will affect every single Canadian that goes get their groceries and they have to pay at the checkout. There is no doubt about it. So how does the, agri-food innovation help, that pay to be less every time, you go get their groceries? So if we improve crop yields, if we reduce input costs, and we talk about fertilizers, fewer, if we increase domestic production, so all those things stabilize the supply and they reduce the long-term cost pressure. So that's a very simple thing for us to understand because we all pay for groceries. I think the second very important one for me, and we had the pandemic as a great example of that. Canada is a large agricultural exporter, but we still rely a lot on imports, especially for food products. So if we have a stronger domestic food production, if we have better capacity for processing storage, it will mean food security. And I think, the global environment right now is so uncertain, never mind the pandemic that, is gone but could come back. We have wars, we have trade disruptions, and all the things that we are seeing, especially right now happening globally. Food security is actually a matter of national security, in my opinion. And that's, I think, would be a big, significant, reason for us to care about it. And then again, I'll just touch a little bit on the climate change, solutions. If we reduce the use of fertilizer, if we learn how to do better soil carbon sequestration, all those sustainable packaging, and those things that can be a little controversial to some people. That's also very important because it is actually, the emissions are a concern. There are different ways to approach it and talk about it. But it is also a very important aspect of why, every person in Canada should be worried about that. So I would say the cost of your food, food security, climate change, if I was to, sum it up, is why we should all be concerned because we all have to eat and nobody's going to stop eating.
Wonderful. It's certainly hot button topics that we can easily relate to in the news as soon as you turn it on every single day. So thank you for that. So from a broader perspective, what role does agriculture and the agri-food sector play in the Canadian economy today? Can you provide some context there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said in the previous question, Canada has a very strong agriculture and agri-food, sector. They certainly are economic heavyweights in Canada. Just for some stats, I think the contribution of agriculture to Canada's GDP is around $140 billion annually. At least one job, one in 9 or 10 jobs in Canada are represented by, agricultural jobs. As I said, the export is quite big, is one of the top export industries in Canada is agriculture. And I think one thing that we don't talk much about is the impact on rural communities. Coast to coast, agriculture is a big anchor for rural communities. And I think the agri-food sector is not just the farming, right? Because we all know that the commodities we export, everybody knows about canola and beef and pork and processed foods and so on. But I really think that we also need to talk about, all the equipment manufacturing we have in Canada, all the retail and food services, the food processing, and so on. So in many rural communities and regions in Canada, agriculture is the backbone of their economy. And when you move to the urban centers, because I think we tend to think about them more because most of us live in the urban center, the advanced manufacturing, the food processing is what drives that economy, with jobs and things like that. So for sure, it plays a big role in our economy. And I think that's why, everybody is talking about agriculture now with all the trade and all the, exciting conversations and things that are happening in Canada. But I think it is important that we are aware of it. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But think of the urban centers, but also the rural regions, which I think Canada's agriculture, that is even more important to those guys.
Well, so I mean, the scale is obviously massive, let alone the spin-off effects to all of the other industries, both rural and urban, that you mentioned. I think
Yeah.
are quite significant. So thank you for that. So topics like sustainability, food security, circular economy, you've mentioned a few of these kind of in your comments so far. They've been talked a lot about in the past several years. They're probably not new to anybody on this call, but what kind of influence have those kinds of topics had on innovation in the agricultural sector? Like, what are we seeing there?
Yeah, no. You see, we keep coming back to the sustainability, right? Sustainability, climate change, uh, food security for sure. I would say, in my opinion, from what I've seen, through work and reading and all those conversations, I really think that these three uh, topics are no longer nice to have. I think they became critical in a way. And the reason I say that is, just painting the big picture here, because, we don't have time to deep dive in any of this. But we were talking about, how it affects us. So just think about the average Canadian, thinking about how can I afford groceries? What's the safety and the quality of my food? What's the environmental footprint impact? And again, rural economies, and communities and things like that. So I don't think, and I keep saying that, I would love to see, we already see it, but, I want to see more of the education starting early in high schools and, schools in general, because agriculture today is no longer fields and tractors and, the pitchfork kind of picture of a farmer. It really is it has evolved to data science, it has evolved to biotechnology, climate solutions that we're talking about, global trade, big impact. So agri-food innovation, those three areas are very important because they really are the intersection, right, of economy, environment, and our everyday life. As I mentioned, the food safety, the price of the groceries, and so I think that's how those areas really, affect innovation, and they are a big drive and a big part of the whole ecosystem and how they affect everything. So just to elaborate a little bit more in terms of sustainability. So this environmental impact that we try to address is really about simple things like water use efficiency. How can innovation increase, or affect, how can we produce more with less, in a nutshell? Or if you're talking about food security, as I said before, it's actually not a commodity. Food is no longer a commodity. I think when we look at it, we should really think about national security, and I truly believe in it. If we don't, the pandemic was the best example of it. If there is no access to anything outside where we live, it is a national security. And then that waste to value, as I mentioned, with the circular economy, we can really use or take advantage of Canada's bioeconomy. We are a huge natural resource. That's why some people want us to be the 51st state. So that biological byproduct of agriculture is big. So I think those are the main reasons why those three areas really drive innovation, not only in Canada, but everywhere.
This is a good segue kind of into my next question for you, Carla. And it's, if we look at the landscape today, have there been any recent developments in the agri-food, agri-tech sector that you think might be game changers? Has there been anything within these areas that would interest our audience here today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I would say yes. I think, if we just go back to what everybody talks about, we are a growing population in Canada, everywhere globally, lots of conversations about that. And again, I'm going to go back to climate change that we don't really, like to talk much about, and it's a little bit controversial depending who you talk to. But if we are really thinking about, not only in Canada, but globally, if you are thinking about, we need to build a more equitable, sustainable food system, we really need to think about the agri-food and agri-tech developments and where they are a game changer, as you said. So again, it's kind of the same. If you think about what I've been, saying in before this question, if we can make production more resilient, it will address labor challenges, for instance, right? If we reduce the environmental impact when you are increasing the production, those are game changers. If we can improve, supply chains so we don't have shortages. So anything that is innovative, that can be put in the hands of the producers, that help them, they are absolutely game changers. I think that's why I think we call them development, because it's just not, it's not an upgrade, right? It's not an incremental upgrade. It is really a shift in how this whole food system work. So I would say for sure the landscape today for agri-food and agri-tech is quite powerful in that shift, actually. We just need to keep more innovation, advancing in Canada. The development of innovation in Canada is a little slow. So we should really shift that if we are really, concerned about our food safety and food security and all those things.
So it sounds like we definitely need to be looking for those homegrown innovations here in Canada, keep those innovations here in Canada, and impact our agri sector as you've laid out here today. So thank you for that. So I think we have another slide we're going to put up with some display research priority areas here in Ontario. So the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness continually evolves its research programming. So why is it important that these research priority areas, the 11 of them that the audience will see on the screen right now, why is it important that these are gaining traction right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to give a shout out to Amafa. We, as everyone knows, Bioenterprise is a business accelerator, and we are funded mostly by the government, and we receive federal monies and provincial money. And here in the province of Ontario, Amafa is one of the partners we have. And we actually like it that they call us partners because really is a partnership. You know, Omafa is one of those ministries that really work together with us, and we are very lucky to have them as one of our funders and our partners. And the research that they are, I find amazing that there are all these 11, priority areas, because they all play an important role in agriculture, not only in Ontario, but, in Canada overall. But they are, really supporting not only accelerators like us to support innovators, but also innovators directly, and they sure are contributing to research. So we Bioenterprise don't do research. We count on partners like, universities and colleges, research centers, all this academia based organizations that work with us like yourselves to help us, with the research about learning. And also many of the innovators that come to work with us come from the research, like they came up with something novel and now they really believe they should be commercializing because, the country is going to gain with it, and so on and so forth. So, big shout out for OMAF as a partner in all these research areas and things they do. So having said that, I think it's not only OMAFA, but all the academia. We all, I think, I could be wrong, but most of us look at the research as an academic exercise. It took me a while to actually find a definition and say, how do we look at these guys, research in general? And I think because most of them are coming from academia, we really think it's an exercise, right? We start, you are an expert in that area and you are, learning about your, expertise, and you are in, health, or you are in agriculture or biotech, whatever. And it is kind of an exercise, right? But I think we should look at them as not that academic exercise. I think the researchers and the research in general should really be looked at as they are helping us shape like the competitiveness that we are seeing everywhere. So in the case of OMAFA, if you look into Ontario agri-food system, this research is really trying to shape how Ontario can be more competitive. So that's how I would look at it. And then Ontario being the largest province in Canada, they contribute like tens of billions of dollars, annually to the Ontario GDP. They support hundreds of jobs, thousands of jobs, and in farming, right? So looking at the agricultural sector in Ontario, distribution, retail, and things like that. And Ontario actually is quite diverse, in agriculture. Like it is one big province. We have different climate from the south to the north. And I think these agricultural regions actually make us also quite diverse in learning. So that research also needs to have those different areas of priority for those reasons too. So I would say that what they are doing really influence the long-term growth and resilience of Ontario as a powerful agricultural region in Canada. I think the research is, helping them gain traction for sure. For producers, as I said, they are helping everybody, right? So again, our food security increase, our innovation in Ontario can be competitive globally, not only nationally. So I think if we look at the big picture, they really matter. Those research areas are helping the Ontario agri-food sector, to be more resilient, bring high value innovation to the economy, generate jobs. So in the end, it all comes back to economic development, I think. So I cannot speak of the research, but thinking of the so many areas and, again, being such a big province and a big player in the Canadian economy, I really think, I guess I'm grateful for those things, because then, we can have conversations with OMAFA when they are developing a new funding program. They bring the research priority and the conversations to the table with us, and we also have that role of identifying, how innovators are able to scale. Is it really, a priority, and for what reason? And are the producers involved in that conversation? So I think it is, the resilience, I guess, is probably the big, and the competitiveness, I guess. So that's what I would say about, working and putting all the efforts they put behind it. And I think it certainly is gaining traction in every area.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I certainly appreciate the whole bringing the research priorities and connecting them with the innovation and economic opportunities and priorities and bringing those two together. It really speaks directly to what we've been doing here at eCampus Ontario as well. So appreciate those insights. We got about 10 minutes or so left here for our questions before we open it up to the audience for questions. But I wanted to take an opportunity to do a little bit of a dive into your work with GOAH, GOAH, and there's a slide popping up here on the screen. So I want to ask you, at what stage would a company typically work with one of your innovation advisors versus when would they join kind of the GOAH avenue? And so if you can shed some light on that, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for that. So again, back to OMAFA's partnership. So the GOAH Ontario Accelerator Hub is funded by OMAFA. And, this is the first time a funder is really investing in really supporting innovators, from hands-on advisory, from very early to mid stage, for high impact and things like that. So the GOAH Ontario Accelerator Hub accepts only Ontario companies, obviously, because it's an Ontario initiative by OMAFA. Anywhere in Ontario, it's a little earlier stage than Bioenterprise usually works with, but they are already, developed the idea. Most of them have a prototype already, but they need that guidance on commercialization. So the hands-on advisory support that we provide through GOAH is really, market validation, regulatory navigation, business strategies, and again, all those connections we talked about to the environment, the networks, the partners, and so on. So GOAH is an entry point, I would say, not necessarily a TRL. I think most people on the call are familiar with the technology readiness level. So it is probably a TRL 4 maybe, but it really varies. You know, I would say that most of them are a little bit more, I'd say, structured, I'd say, in the commercialization path. And then we take them from there.
Good. So how does mentorship and differ from advisory or consulting support that one might receive from Bioenterprise?
It's actually a very good question. I would say that consulting would be more a strategist in the sense of I structured, not that we are not structured, but I think the mentorship is more a personal guidance, right? So we have a long-term relationship base. As I said, we only do 12 months minimum. So it's not, it's the approach, I guess, is collaborative. I think the mentors with their expertise in the area, you know, in the different subsectors of agriculture, they are providing a guidance and a perspective with their expertise, with their lessons learned, because some of the innovation advisors have actually been through that journey and were very successful when they exit the business, and now they are, you know, paying forward. We have many experts that work in government or, you know, other corporations and things like that. So I think it's just the design, the duration, you know, aspects like that would, I think, is how I would differentiate a little bit between the mentorship and the consultant type of business.
Wonderful, thank you. So as a business, where during the development should I, as a business, start thinking about joining an accelerator program? And how might an academic partnership support that growth?
Well, it really depends. So since we're talking about, of course, agriculture and GOAH, you know, and agri-tech and so on, I think the best time is, so if we're talking accelerator, you should have your idea and probably, you know, a prototype, maybe not quite, but you are closer to that. Because if you are really, you know, that ideation incubator phase, you really need to pass that part, which is extremely important too. So the incubators have a big role to play there. But I'd say that for the academic part, that's for the accelerator in, you know, in a very simple way of entry stage. And then I think the academic partnership is more kind of a complement in every stage. So I really think that partnering with research, you know, and academics and, you know, groups like yourself and all the other partners we have in academia is really having that validation, right? So you can do applied research on projects and trials. You can do testing new product formulations. You can kind of validate the technical feasibility. You can do so the academic, remember when, you know, before I said that research is not an academic exercise. It's kind of that idea that you will do technical validation, research capability, credibility is a big part of it. And yeah, I think those will be the stages. It really it's hard to answer because, you know, every company has a different story. But I would say that the development of a startup would kind of, you know, follow that journey at the beginning until you get to this partnership, you know, with an accelerator and the academic.
That makes sense. So we come to a little bit of a kind of a show and tell. Can you share a success story about a business that is engaged with GOAH, and any insights you can share there?
Yeah, we actually spoke to, we have, so as a proud, GOAH partner with Omafa, and our team doing such an amazing job. I have to say that we started the program maybe 2 years ago, three, maybe we're starting our year three. I should know better, shouldn't I? We have already worked with probably 60, 62 companies, which is amazing. And, everywhere in Ontario, they are located totally different subsectors of agriculture. So it has been a very successful project, and we love GOAH. We're very excited about it, and we still have a couple of years to go. So one of the successes and startup that has worked with us is called Infinite Harvest Technologies. The founders are trailblazers, especially Tamara. I don't know actually if she's joining this call or not, but she is amazing. She really believes in her technology, and she is a trailblazer. So she joined our GOAH program, and one of the things that I really love about her is not only her determination, but in our relationship, trying to brag a little bit here, since I have the audience, is, the role of the innovation advisor. And I remember they started working with us, and you never know how it's going to go. Sometimes people click and work fast and take off, others take a little bit and work on parts of the business and then shift and go. But in the case of Infinite Harvest, they connected with our one of our innovation advisors, and in one of the email exchanges we had, they were about to, we invited them to join us in one of the farm shows we attend. And her question was, is the innovation advisor going to be there? And the reason she asked that is because she said, having our product ready this week for us to be able to sell is the result of the amazing support of our innovation advisor. And I think that is probably one of the best, testimonials we can have. So they have, this big vision, and I think that's part of the name of their company, Infinite Harvest, because it's actually a circular economy innovation. They use insects to upcycle plant and animal byproducts. And the bugs for rent products that they are, commercializing, they are actually going into pet food. So you kind of go, what? It's agriculture. So that's why I say it's so interesting, when you are working with the circular economy and upcycling and so on. So they are basically managing, agri-food waste. They are transforming agri-food waste into circular economy, and it is a animal byproduct of that. So, she can start with an innovation advisor in an expert in agriculture in that area, and then she can work with a circular economy innovation, to see how she's going to, bring her product to market. And then she ends up working with an innovation advisor in the pet food industry. And you kind of go, wow, what's the connection there, right? And then you finally learn that last innovation advisor is the one who really made a big difference, and it had huge impact in finally bringing her product to be ready to sell. So I think it's a win-win so if we connect OMAFA, investing in that priority area and supporting innovations like this to meet Bioenterprise, and we being able to support their development, so that, we all talk about the innovator journey. That's a beautiful journey. That's a beautiful, story to tell, and we are very proud of it. And so much so that Infinite Harvest continues working with us, because now they have a second phase, and they have to keep accelerating, and generating revenue, and they, provide jobs and so many things like that. So the impact at the end for the Ontario economy, that is a great example of how those research priorities are really gaining traction and giving it back to the economy. We could talk about, lots of things about Infinite Harvest, totally worth learning more about Tamara and learning about what they are doing. But I think that sums up, our entire conversation here. And we are very proud of, they did all the work, is their technology, their determination, they really believe in what they're doing. But if it's not for funders like OMAFA, and having experts like our innovation advisors and everybody truly supporting, the growth, acceleration, and market adoption, they cannot make it. And then the ultimate outcome is Canada is an innovative country. We ended up exporting this to other countries, and bringing Canada, to the top of that list of being, a real agricultural, innovative country.
That's great. I mean, it certainly is wonderful to hear a story and to understand how your organization impacted that business's story. And no, I think it draws home a lot of, as you say, everything we've talked about here today. So we're a little bit past time on our agenda. So I think we're going to stop our conversation at the moment, Carla. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Michael. He's going to host any Q&A from the audience and wrap up our conversation with the supports that are available through eCampus Ontario and others. So I'll thank you very much, Carla. It's great chatting with you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Don and Carla, for that insightful and stimulating conversation on everything from soil to shelf. I really valued your reminders that research is not just an academic exercise, and that especially in the context of increasing federal investment in defense, that food security is national security. So thank you for sharing those insights, Carla. I'd like to close today's webinar by sharing some additional supports available to your organization, whether you represent a business or a post-secondary institution, through eCampus Ontario, and then we'll turn over to Q&A. So we understand the importance of an educated workforce, rapid time to market for new products, and stable funding partnerships to support business and organizational success. The Ontario Collaborative Innovation Platform, or OCIP, helps businesses and organizations bring new innovations and products to market by linking academic researchers with relevant expertise. Businesses and organizations also receive direct access to funding opportunities and tax credits. The OCIP platform approach reduces the risk of innovation for businesses and organizations, provides businesses and organizations with a low-cost feasibility and scope assessment of the proposed development, opens access to non-repayable grants, speeds time to market, protects intellectual property, and helps open access to the research and development expertise in Ontario's colleges, polytechnics, universities, and Indigenous institutes. You can learn more about OCIP at ocip.ai or by scanning the QR code on this slide. The Microcredentials portal is the official upskilling platform of the Ontario government and a main component of Ontario's microcredential strategy. The platform, powered by labor market information, allows users to find relevant upskilling and reskilling opportunities based on occupation, skill, technology, industry, or keywords. The portal sources courses from Ontario's colleges, Indigenous institutes, and universities. You can explore more than 2,900 training opportunities at microlearnontario.ca. If you offer short duration training that is not yet listed on our platform, please do connect with us about getting involved. Finally, in partnership with Magnet, eCampus Ontario is also supporting small and medium-sized businesses to tap into 50 to 70% in wage subsidy funding to support current student hires. If you've hired a student from January through March this year, you may be eligible to recover costs. Please visit the QR code here on the slide to apply. For future placement cycles, please contact us at wil-ait at eCampusOntario.ca to connect with our team and learn more. We do have a few questions in the chat, Carla, so I'm just going to read through some of these. First couple questions are related, and they're about some of the innovations that we might see right now in terms of game changers. So how about indoor farming solutions like greenhouses and vertical farms? Are those on folks' radar? And also related, is somebody looking at pairing data centers and greenhouses in northern regions for year-round operations?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for the questions. Yes, absolutely. So I'd say, when we talked about the game changers, I gave some examples, but for sure, controlled environment agriculture, which are the greenhouses and vertical farms, absolutely part of it. Is where we call primary agriculture. They would be under that. And for sure, the second one, absolutely, the data centers and, for northern regions. I actually always say, I am a fan of the territories. I am an advocate for them. And whenever we talk about trade now, I always say, you guys should all go to the Yukon and Northwest Territories and have a chat with those guys, because they've been fighting trade, all along, because they import from our own provinces in Canada. So absolutely, all those things are important innovations, and they are game changers, absolutely.
Thanks so much. Our next question is, what are the most practical AI use cases that you're seeing that help agri-food SMEs move faster from idea to market? How does AI play a role?
Yeah, the AI. So I think AI is very important. Again, part of the game changers or what type of innovation we are seeing now. So I would say that AI is used a lot for crop disease detection, is one of the biggest things. But I would say that in general, digital and data-driven agriculture is very important. And that could be, we can start with the very simple things. We talk about what Canadians need and food and things that we understand well. I would say the marketplace platforms that we have nowadays connecting producers to buyers is one of them. The farm management software platforms, for sure, and traceability. I think traceability systems for supply chain are one of the, new or important, I shouldn't say new, but very important or key innovations that for sure help all this agri-tech and food, agri-food in Canada. Not only in Canada, everywhere, I would say.
Awesome. We have time for one final question. Can you let us know what some good preparations researchers can make if they're looking to go from their lab to Bioenterprise programs? What should they be ready to bring to you to succeed in your programs?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. Well, we welcome everyone for a conversation. I am the queen of phone calls. So I believe that if you have something, first of all, if you're not sure if your innovation, your research, or the project work is something good or not good or important or novel, or give us a call. We would be happy to hear. We love learning about what people are doing. And if we cannot help you, if you are not at that stage that we can help you, our agri-tech engine can direct you anywhere in Canada where you can get help and support and have conversations and things like that. So I think that's the best way to answer it. Any stage, any conversation, you are more than welcome to connect with us. And then we can, because, sometimes you are unsure and you miss an opportunity. So, every question is important and we'd love to answer them.
We appreciate Bioenterprise being just a phone call away. On that note, we are at time. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, John and Carla, for the wonderful chat. And we hope to see you all soon at the future eCampus Ontario event. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. Bye.